My daughter saw me as her enemy. I paid for her piano lessons, and she said I just wanted to put her on display for people's amusement. She wanted to meet up with some guy she met online. I was dead set against it, and she accused me of taking away her freedom. She won the gold medal at a major piano competition, with a brilliant future ahead of her, but in a public interview, she claimed I only saw her as a meal ticket. Later, when I had a sudden heart attack, she flushed my medicine down the drain, telling me I should have died long ago. When I was reborn, I sold the expensive piano and cut off her tuition payments. I watched her fall from grace and I did nothing. And then, she was filled with regret. I opened my eyes to a message from the piano teacher. Claire's mom, the tuition for the next semester is due. It's $4,800, same as usual. Also, has something been on her mind lately? I've caught her on her phone during class, and she isn't practicing seriously. She hasn't completed her practice assignments for 2 weeks straight. If she keeps this up, she'll be lucky to even qualify for the national piano competition, let alone win an award. When you have a moment, you should talk to her. Remind her to focus. Her future is what's most important. I stared at the familiar words on my phone screen, my breathing uneven. I received these same messages in my past life. Back then, I asked my daughter, Claire, what was going on and found out she'd gotten a boyfriend in an online game, a guy 10 years older than her, and they were planning to meet in person. She was still a minor. An online relationship like that was a huge red flag. I couldn't let her walk into that kind of danger. She threw a massive fit, viciously threatening that if I didn't let her have her romance, she'd kill herself. She even took a wrench and smashed the piano I had just bought her. That piano cost nearly $10,000. It was her 16th birthday present. In the end, of course, I didn't give in. I paid a fortune to repair the piano, made her delete the game, paid her tuition, and supervised her practice every single day. Thanks to all that effort, she won the gold medal at the piano competition 6 months later. She was praised by several judges and received a guaranteed spot at a prestigious arts academy. She had a bright future ahead of her. Seeing my daughter wearing the victor's laurel, I felt immensely proud. I never imagined that in the post-competition interview, she would tearfully list my crimes. She said I was the person she hated most. She said I forced her to learn piano because I wanted to put her on display for others' entertainment. She said I drove away her father and grandmother, refusing to let her see the family she loved most. She said I wouldn't let her pursue her true love, threatening her with death to force a breakup. She said I was dirt poor and had pinned all my hopes on her, trying to turn her into a cash cow. Her voice was hoarse, and every reporter in the room was moved. When I saw the interview on TV, the rage triggered a heart attack. She was right there beside me. As I gasped for air, she calmly flushed all my pills down the drain, her expression a venomous mix of glee and vengeance. Why bother with medicine? You should have died a long time ago. That was the last thing I heard before I died. My soul hovered in the air. I watched her cry as she dialed 911, and I watched them take my body away for a pointless attempt at resuscitation. In front of the media, she cried her eyes out, winning over countless sympathizers. The prestigious arts academy she'd been admitted to made an exception, waiving all her tuition fees and granting her an annual scholarship of $20,000. A famous pianist announced he would take her as his protégé, with plans to send her abroad to study. Soon after, she reconnected with the biological father she hadn't seen in years, posting loving photos that were met with a flood of blessings from online strangers. And what about me? Online people said it was good that I died, that it was karma, that I got what I deserved. My ashes were buried in a rundown cemetery on the outskirts of the city. Tourists visiting the area would make a point to spit on my grave. When my husband cheated and we divorced, I was so afraid my daughter would be bullied by his new family that I agreed to leave with nothing, just to win custody of her. To afford her piano lessons, I worked my day job, then worked 2 more jobs at night. Terrified of wasting her talent, I spent a fortune to hire the best teachers for her. I poured years of my sweat and tears into making her shine, only for her to turn around and grind me into the dust. So much for the bond between a mother and daughter. I typed out a reply to the piano teacher. I'm sorry, teacher, but I won't be paying Claire's tuition for the next semester. If she still wants to learn, She can ask her father to pay for it. If she never appreciated my efforts and only saw me as an enemy, then I'm done. This time, I'll give her the freedom she wants. I let out a slow breath and stood up, looking around the room. This was the house I lived in before the divorce in my past life, with my daughter, my husband, and my mother-in-law. 4 of us in total. Right now my daughter was at school, my husband was on a business trip, and my mother-in-law was out at her dance class. It wasn't a big house, just 3 bedrooms. My mother-in-law had 1 room, my daughter had another, and the piano and her books took up the 3rd. My husband, Liam, was a busy man, constantly traveling for work and rarely home. When he was home, he'd stay in his mother's room, and she would move in with our daughter, sharing the biggest bed in the house. And me? I slept on the pull-out couch in the living room. During the day, it was a sofa. At night, I'd pull it out into a bed. It made me feel like a complete outsider. My personal space was squeezed into a single small cabinet in the piano room. Even then, my daughter constantly complained that my things were taking up space, and threatened to throw all my clothes out. The house was joint property between me and my husband, Liam. After he cheated, the house should have been mine. But Liam and his mistress were cunning, and my mother-in-law fanned the flames. At the time, desperate to get custody of our daughter, I had no choice but to give up the house and leave with nothing, moving with Claire into a small rental apartment near her school. Claire never let me hear the end of it. She said the house should have been Liam's anyway, and if I wanted a divorce, I should have just left on my own instead of dragging her down with me. She always accused me of pocketing the child support money, complaining her allowance was too small. The truth was, Liam never paid a dime of child support. She thought I kept her from seeing Liam because I was afraid he would take her away from me. The truth was, I didn't want her to see how happy Liam and his new wife were, how they were about to have the son they'd always desperately wanted, and how she had become an afterthought to them. Since she was little, she believed Liam was the best person in the world, and by extension, she adored her grandmother. But she never knew that Liam and his mother were always disappointed that I had a daughter, failing to carry on their family name. But no good deed goes unpunished. I dedicated half my life to her. And in the end, all I got was misunderstanding and blame. It was tragic and laughable. But it's okay. I've been reborn. This time, I still have a chance to choose how I live the rest of my life. I called a music shop and made an appointment to sell the new piano at a reduced price. In my past life, I had spent every penny I had painstakingly saved over many years to buy Claire that new piano. Her old one was too worn out. It was always out of tune, and no amount of repairs could fix it. The national piano competition was in 6 months. It was her one shot at making it big, and I couldn't let a broken piano bury her musical talent. But what did she do? She smashed the gift I had so carefully chosen for her without a second thought. Since she didn't want it, I was taking it back. Just then, my daughter came home from school, backpack slung over her shoulder. She was grinning, completely love-struck, cooing into her phone, "I'm home now. See you later, babe." The moment she saw me, her smile vanished. The look in her eyes was one of disgust, as if she'd just seen a dead, rotting rat. I was standing in the piano room, and when she saw me, she yelled, "What are you doing in here, you old hag? Are you going to watch me practice again? You're disgusting. I told you. I don't want to play the piano. I don't like it. I won't do it. And you keep forcing me to play that stupid thing. Other parents are so open-minded. Why can't you be? Other kids are free after school. They can watch TV, read, play games. I have to practice every single day, and at night, when I want to play a couple of games, you rush me to bed." Even though I had decided to let her go, her words still felt like daggers stabbing into my heart, causing a sharp, uncontrollable pain. I still remembered when she was little, her eyes full of dreams, telling me she wanted to be a pianist when she grew up. Liam didn't want to spend that much money on a daughter, and my mother-in-law called her a waste of money. Only I, against the criticism of the entire family, spent a fortune to send her to piano lessons, all to help her achieve her dream. And now she says she doesn't like it? That I forced her to play? I made her practice for an hour every night to keep her skills sharp for the national competition. And that was taking away her freedom? Pushing her to practice, to get into a top university, wasn't that for her own good? She would play games until 2 in the morning, even though she had to be up at 6 for school. Was I wrong for telling her to stop and get some sleep? The woman I am today is no longer angry, just heartbroken. I said calmly, "You're right. I won't force you to practice anymore." Huh? What? My daughter was skeptical, unable to believe I could say such a thing. I repeated myself, word for word. I said, "I will not force you to practice anymore. Not only that, but I won't force you to do anything else you don't like. I won't check if you've finished your homework, and I won't rush you to sleep when you're playing games. You want to date someone? Date whoever you want, however you want. I will not interfere. I'm not going to manage any part of your life. Do whatever you want. From now on, as you wished, I'm giving you complete freedom." I made it very clear to her. She could tell I wasn't just being petty or using reverse psychology, I was being completely sincere. The corners of her mouth turned up in an uncontrollable smirk. She asked me, "So if I don't want to go to piano lessons anymore, that's okay too?" I smiled and replied, "Of course. I wasn't going to pay the tuition anyway." Her expression changed slightly, as if something felt off, but she didn't dwell on it. Right now, her top priority was securing her own interests. "I have a boyfriend from a game. He loves me a lot, and I'm planning to meet him this weekend. You won't stop me, right?" she asked again. I nodded. "Of course not. I support you in your pursuit of true love." My daughter brought up a few more points, and I agreed to every single one, promising not to interfere. Only then did she seem satisfied. She went back to her room, threw her backpack on the floor, and flopped onto her bed to play games on her phone. "I'm starving. I want sweet and sour pork for dinner. Hurry up and make it," she yelled. I pretended not to hear, leaning back on the sofa and contacting a lawyer friend to draft a divorce agreement, which I then printed out on our home printer. My husband was coming home from his business trip tonight. Perfect timing for him to sign it. As for dinner, whoever wanted to cook could cook. I was planning to order takeout to celebrate my new life. After 2 rounds of her game, my daughter came out, even hungrier now. When she saw the dining table was bare, without so much as a grain of rice, she immediately flew into a rage. I said I wanted sweet and sour pork for dinner. Didn't you hear me? Are you deaf as well as stupid? I was scrolling through videos on my phone, and didn't even look up. I already told you, I'm not in charge of you anymore. Whether you're hungry or not has nothing to do with me. She shrieked, "Are you crazy, you old hag? If you don't cook, who will?" I shrugged. "Whoever feels like it. It just won't be me. Cooking for myself? Sure. Cooking for an ungrateful brat? Sorry, I refuse." Just then, the doorbell rang. My dim sum delivery had arrived. To my daughter's stunned and confused silence, I collected the takeout and began unpacking the containers one by one. Pork rib congee, shrimp dumplings, crab roe shumai, crispy pan-fried dumplings, all things I never let myself buy to save money. She sat down brazenly across the table. "Which one's mine?" I said. "I ordered this for myself." "There's none for you." Her eyes looked like they were about to pop out of her head. "Then what am I supposed to eat? You really have lost your mind." I knew it. I knew something was up with you acting all nice. You're just using reverse psychology to force me to practice. I'm so sick of it. No wonder Dad never wants to come home. Nobody could stand you. Give me money. I'm going out for the seafood buffet. I picked up a shrimp dumpling and popped it in my mouth, savoring the taste. Your dad has money. Go ask him. She was so choked up by my response that she was speechless for a moment. After a while, she pulled out her phone and called Liam. "Daddy, can you send me some money? I want to go out for a big meal. That old hag is acting crazy. I don't know what's gotten into her." Not only did she not cook, but she ordered delicious takeout and didn't get me any. She even said she's not going to take care of me anymore. "Oh really? You'll be home soon? Okay. I'll wait for you, Daddy." She hung up the phone and gloated at me. "My dad just landed. He'll be home soon and said he's bringing me something good to eat. Look at how generous my dad is, and then look at you. I really don't know why he ever married you. You're old and washed up, working that dead-end job for pennies, and you're always dressed in rags. You look worse than the cleaning lady." I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. My job used to be demanding, often requiring me to work overtime until 7 or 8 at night, but it paid well. After our daughter was born, I requested a transfer to a position with shorter hours and much lower pay, just so I could come home early every day to make her dinner. I'd been doing that for over a decade, ever since she started kindergarten. And what did I get for it? In her eyes, the sacrifices I made were utterly worthless. I gave a faint, sad smile, shook my head, and went back to my meal without another word. I hadn't eaten a meal by myself in a very long time. It felt strangely wonderful. By the time I was finishing up, my daughter was so hungry she could feel her stomach touching her spine. Liam finally walked in, pulling his suitcase behind him. My daughter shot toward him like a little cannonball, throwing her arms around the father she adored. "Daddy, you're back." That old hag must have lost her mind. She wouldn't let me eat. "I'm starving." Liam shot me a disgusted look, then ruffled our daughter's hair. "Claire, you've had it rough. Let's just ignore her. Come on, time to eat. Daddy went out of his way to buy this for you on the way home. It's your favorite, pork and preserved egg wontons. Eat up while they're hot." With that, he placed a $10 container of wontons on the table. My daughter exclaimed, "Wow, thank you, Daddy. I love you the most." I almost laughed out loud. "Out of his way," he said. The truth was, he just bought them from the stall at the entrance to our neighborhood. Liam was incredibly stingy. He never wanted to spend money on me or our daughter. With his mistress, however, it was a different story. He showered her with designer clothes, bags, and makeup. He even bought her a car worth tens of thousands of dollars without batting an eye. But whenever he spent even a small amount of money on our daughter, he would make a huge show of his sincerity, trying to make every dollar seem like it was worth 100. My daughter was naive and fell for it every time, thanking him effusively. For example, on her recent 16th birthday, he gave her a 10-game skin. He claimed he'd known for a while that she liked the game, and had spent a lot of time picking out the perfect skin. Hearing this, she practically jumped for joy, repeating over and over, "I love you the most, Daddy." As for the new 10,000 piano I gave her, she didn't even glance at it, complaining that all I ever did was force her to practice. While our daughter was eating her wontons, I called Liam over to the coffee table. He looked annoyed. "What do you want? I haven't even unpacked. I still have work to do tonight." I don't know when it started, but he had become impatient even talking to me for a few minutes, terrified I was going to ask him for money for Claire's piano lessons. I sighed and handed him the divorce agreement I had just printed. "Liam, let's get a divorce." Liam's mouth twitched. He looked at me as if I were insane. "Why? Have you completely lost your mind? Why would you want a divorce out of the blue? Making a scene, not even cooking for the family. What's my mom going to eat when she gets back? She burns so much energy at her dance class every day. You should be making her extra food to replenish her strength. Can't you be as good to my mom as you are to your own? Are you acting out because I haven't been spending time with you? I'm exhausted from work. What time do I have for you? I told you before we got married, I don't like clingy women. You've always been so low maintenance. What's wrong with you now?" In my past life, Liam and I divorced 2 months from this point. At first, he hadn't actually wanted a divorce, he was simply enjoying his affair. But then 2 months later, his mistress suddenly told him she was 4 months pregnant, and an ultrasound showed it was a boy. If it had been a girl, Liam might have hesitated. But a boy? He had to have him. He immediately came to me to discuss the divorce. He knew how much our daughter meant to me, so he used her as leverage. He told me I had to choose the house and our savings, or custody of our daughter. I didn't want to make a big scene, and I didn't want our daughter to find out that the father she had always adored had been cheating, keeping a mistress, and was now about to abandon her for a son. I was terrified that the shock and depression would affect her competition performance and ruin her future. So I didn't take him to court. I chose to leave with nothing and raise our daughter on my own, working to support us. Besides, I could imagine that if I had actually given our daughter to Liam, her future would have been completely ruined. With his and his mother's sexist views, they wouldn't just stop her piano lessons, they might not even let her go to college. Once the mistress gave birth to a son, they would favor him even more, and they might even end up selling our daughter off for a bride price. "Because I know you have a mistress," I said bluntly. His face changed instantly. You don't be ridiculous. Do you have any proof? I sneered. It's so obvious. Do I really need proof? I could just ask anyone at your company. But since you want proof, fine. We can see each other in court. Seeing that I was serious, Liam quickly sat down next to me, trying to placate me. Tanya, don't be rash. Let's sit down and talk this through. There's nothing to talk about, I said coldly, scooting away from him. Just be quick about it and sign. The house and the savings are mine. You leave with nothing. Don't force me to take this to court. It'll save us both the public humiliation. When he saw that being nice wasn't working, he put on a stern face and warned me, Tanya, I suggest you think this through. If you insist on taking the assets, then I get custody of our daughter. Just as I expected, he was using the same threat as last time. Unfortunately for him, he had miscalculated. Now my daughter was someone I could take or leave. Seeing me silent, Liam thought he had regained the upper hand. A look of pleasure crossed his face as he continued his presumptuous speech. If you're willing to give up the assets, I can consider letting you have the girl. I'll even give you $50 a month in child support. If you're careful, that should be enough to cover your expenses. If you're not willing, then don't blame me for being ruthless. The girl will have to stay with me. And I certainly won't be paying for any of those useless piano lessons. I'll sell the piano too. I shook my head. No need to trouble yourself. I've already sold it. Liam was stunned. What? Not only that, I didn't renew her piano tuition. From now on, she's all yours, Liam, I said slowly. Liam's jaw dropped. He was completely dumbfounded. He truly hadn't expected me to so casually give up the daughter I used to cherish like the apple of my eye. And the crucial point was he didn't want this burden at all. His expression shifted rapidly as his mind raced, trying to find some other leverage he could use to negotiate with me. But he didn't know that once I had given up my only weakness, my daughter, I had become invincible. Just then, Claire finished eating and came over. What are you guys talking about? Liam's back stiffened, but he forced a fatherly smile. Claire, we're not talking about anything, just... I cut straight to the point. I'm divorcing your father. Claire's eyes lit up with pure joy. She rushed over to hug Liam. Is it true? Dad, are you finally divorcing this disgusting old hag? This is great. I want to live with you, Dad. I don't want to be with her. I clutched my chest, trying to keep my breathing even. Liam caught my pained expression and became even more convinced that my earlier words were just an empty bluff. His eyes darted, and he raised an eyebrow at me. Are you sure you've thought this through? You see how much our daughter dislikes you. There's no way I'm giving you custody. Unless you agree to leave with nothing, then I might, reluctantly, let you take her. Hearing this, Claire immediately became upset. Dad, what are you talking about? Even if she leaves with nothing, I'm not going with her. I want to live with you and Grandma. Even if you find a new mom later, I won't be mad. I'll get along with the new mom and take good care of my little brother or sister. Daddy, don't you love me anymore? Are you just going to stand by and watch me live a miserable life with her? Her words were a form of emotional blackmail, leaving Liam speechless. I watched him, pretending to be torn and indecisive. As Liam's expression grew more hopeful, I finally spoke with a sigh of resignation. Since she likes you so much, then she can stay with you. Liam was furious. You. Claire cheered yes. You don't want me, and I couldn't care less about you. I'm going to have a happy life with my dad and Grandma. You can just be jealous. Liam's eyes bulged. It took him a moment to choke out. Are you really sure? I shot back, what's wrong? You don't want to raise your own daughter? Was all that affection you showed her just an act? Claire spat at me in disgust. You vicious old woman, stop trying to drive a wedge between us. My dad and I have the best relationship in the world. Dad, tell her she's wrong. Let's put this old hag in her place. Liam was cornered and could only mutter, yes, that's right. Claire looked smug. See, your tricks are useless. Just go be a lonely, unwanted divorcee. I smiled and pushed the divorce agreement in front of Liam again. Liam, sign it. You get custody of our daughter, and I get all the assets. From now on, we're even. Claire urged him on, Dad, hurry up and sign it. I can't wait to start my new happy life. Liam stared at the agreement, his face growing darker. There's no way you're getting all the assets. I threw my hands up. Then my only option is to sue you for adultery and recover all the assets you gave your mistress during our marriage. You'll be left with nothing, and your reputation will be ruined. We'll see if your company or your mistress still wants you then. Claire was shocked. Dad, you cheated? Liam's face turned green. But Claire quickly processed the information. It's okay, Dad. I support you in your pursuit of true love. If I were you, I wouldn't like this bossy old woman either. Just being in the same house with her is suffocating. Dad, just give her the assets. We don't need them. You make good money anyway. You'll earn it all back in a year or two. And think about it, Dad. Didn't you give a lot of money to your true love? You can just ask for some of it back. We're not short on cash at all. Trading some superficial assets for the woman you love and your daughter, that's a great deal, right? Liam looked like he was about to have a stroke. I fanned the flames. Your daughter has spoken. What are you still hesitating for? Or are you really just a hypocrite who's planning to abandon her? The accusation sent a rush of blood to Liam's head. He snatched the pen and furiously signed his name, pressing so hard he nearly tore through the paper. After signing, he threw the pen down heavily. She can stay with me, but you are not to see her ever again. I smiled. Fine by me. Whatever you say. I urged them to start packing their things, hoping they would be out by the next evening. For years, whenever I asked my daughter to clean her room, she would drag her feet and complain endlessly. But now, for the first time ever, she was packing with incredible enthusiasm. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her sort through the items she wanted to take. She packed box after box of novels, but not a single piece of sheet music or any book related to music was included. It seemed she really was planning to give up the piano for good. I felt a twinge of melancholy. Perhaps we just had different dreams in life. When I was a child, I loved music. My teachers all said I had a gift, and I dreamed of having my own piano. But my family was poor, and my parents blatantly favored my younger brother. There was no way they would send me to lessons, let alone buy me an expensive piano. All I had was a cheap recorder, which I played over and over again. Now that I was an adult and could manage my own income, my daughter happened to inherit my musical talent. She even told me herself that she wanted to learn piano. Of course, I had to do everything in my power to make that happen, even if my family disapproved. When I watched my daughter play the piano, it was like I was seeing myself. Years ago, I had injured my fingers protecting her when a heavy metal box fell. Even after they healed, they were never as nimble as before, and I could never play an instrument again. At the time, I thought that letting my daughter fulfill my dream for me was just as good. But as it turned out, my daughter had long since abandoned her childhood dream. I was the only one still clinging to it, and it only made her resent me. So be it. As long as she doesn't regret the choice she's making now. There was a noise at the door. My mother-in-law was back from her dance class. Seeing the house filled with boxes, she quickly asked what was going on. My daughter said happily, "Grandma, Dad is divorcing that old hag. From now on, the three of us can live a happy, joyful life together." Hearing this news, my mother-in-law's face broke into a wide smile. A divorce is good. A divorce is good. It's about time. But then a thought struck her, and something seemed wrong. A divorce is one thing, she can leave on her own. Why are you two packing? My daughter replied, because she's getting the house and all the assets. We're moving out to live our happy life. My mother-in-law's expression changed in an instant. Her voice shot up an octave as she shrieked, "Liam, are you crazy? Why would you give her the assets?" Liam quickly came out of his room at the sound of her voice, but before he could speak, our daughter explained, "That old hag is very cunning. She threatened Dad that if he didn't give her the assets, she would take me away. Of course, Dad wasn't willing to give me up, so he chose to give up the assets instead. See, Dad loves me the most." My daughter's version of the story, with its omissions and distortions, actually played right into my hands. My mother-in-law looked like she was about to have a fit. "Crazy. You're both crazy. Why didn't you take the assets? What's the use of keeping her? She's just a money pit, and those piano lessons are so expensive." My daughter retorted defensively, "Grandma, I'm not going to learn piano anymore." Her grandmother was still not satisfied, her voice growing louder. That useless girl was being supported by that witch, so I didn't say much. Now that the witch is gone, how are we supposed to afford her? My daughter finally began to understand. Her face flushed red as she argued, I'm all grown up. You don't have to worry about me. Grandma, what do you mean by that? Don't you want me? Her grandmother blurted out, of course. Liam immediately cut her off. Mom, just drop it. The papers are already signed. It's done. You should start packing your things too. We're moving out tomorrow. My mother-in-law snorted, muttering under her breath, you'll regret this later, and that witch really got lucky, and I'm not spending a single cent on this money pit, before going to pack her things. My daughter didn't look happy, but she still taunted me, Grandma is just all bark and no bite. She actually loves me very much. Not like you, with your black heart. I just smiled and said nothing. You can spend the rest of your life finding out what kind of person your grandmother really is. The next morning, Liam and I went to get our divorce certificate. By the afternoon, all of their luggage was gone. They moved into the old apartment where my in-laws used to live. It was in a 40 or 50-year-old building, on the top floor, freezing in the winter, scorching in the summer, and it leaked when it rained. My daughter was thoroughly disgusted by it, but the thought of the happy life that lay ahead convinced her to reluctantly move in. As for me, I was about to start my new life. I rented out my old house and used the $30,000+ I got from the divorce to buy a fully furnished house and moved in. The area was considered remote, with poor transportation and no good schools, so few people were willing to buy property there. The house was over 2,000 square feet, and the down payment was only $20,000. But I knew that in a few months, a large shopping mall would be built nearby, a subway station would be added, and a branch of a renowned elementary school would be constructed in the vicinity. When that happened, the property value would quintuple. After settling these matters, I bought memberships to a gym and a spa. The cost of both combined was less than 1 month of piano tuition. In my previous life, I had neglected myself so much for my daughter's sake, never daring to buy clothes that cost more than $30. This time, I was going to make up for it all. The upper management at my company had always valued my abilities. When they learned that I could now dedicate myself fully to my work, they immediately restored my former position. After 2 months of readjusting, my monthly salary went from $400 to $2,000. At the same time, I consistently worked out and took care of myself. My body and skin improved so much that I looked 10 years younger. One day, on my way to work, I happened to be scrolling through social media and saw a post from my former mother-in-law. She was loudly announcing that Liam was getting remarried, to the same mistress from my past life, of course. In the wedding photos, the mistress's belly was already slightly showing. She also mentioned that she was finally going to have a grandson. It seemed the timeline in this life was more or less the same as the last. I commented, "Congratulations." It was as if she was waiting by her phone, because she replied almost instantly, "See? Some women are useful, unlike you, who can only have a useless girl. That money pit is a grown woman now and still asks me for money to go eat barbecue, hot pot, and sushi. You better find some time to come get her. I'm not raising her." I just smiled faintly and blocked her. After work that day, I treated myself to a meal at a fancy hot pot restaurant I never could have afforded in my past life. On the way home, I passed by my daughter's old piano tutoring center. It occurred to me that there might be some outstanding fees or items left in her locker, so I decided to go in and ask. The person at the reception was a young girl, about 16 or 17, the same age as my daughter. She looked vaguely familiar. Before I could place her, she recognized me. "Mrs. Tan, you're here. Don't you remember me? I'm Emily." Then I remembered. The girl's name was Emily Young. During the piano class placement test last year, she had been seated next to my daughter. The piano class I had enrolled Claire in was specifically geared towards the annual national piano competition. The selection criteria were extremely strict. Only students with a strong foundation and exceptional talent were accepted. Emily had placed first in that test. My daughter had placed second. But when classes officially started, I never saw Emily again. I was curious at the time and casually asked about her, only to find out that her family wouldn't pay the tuition fees. The teacher had lamented the situation to me. That child has a younger brother at home, and her parents favor him. They're unwilling to spend money on her lessons, and won't even buy her a piano. She had to sign up for the placement test in secret, behind her parents' backs. She usually practices on the piano in the school's music room. To achieve her level of skill under those conditions is truly remarkable. She's such a promising talent. It's a real shame. With music, talent is one thing, and hard work is another, but family support is also incredibly important. In all my years of teaching, I've seen many families who couldn't bear to let their children study piano, and eventually gave up. It doesn't matter how much talent they have. I just hope these kids can find a way to shine on a different path. My eyes welled up as I listened. Forced to give up the piano, wasn't I one of them? I asked Emily, "What are you doing working here?" Her smile was a bit strained. My parents are in debt, so they made me drop out of school. I can only work here at the tutoring center. Luckily, the teacher is very kind to me. I can sit in on classes when I'm free, and when no one is around, I can use the practice room piano. I feel pretty good about it. Some people, no matter how hard life gets, will fight tooth and nail to climb higher. And others, blessed with perfect conditions and a bright future, toss their opportunities aside like trash. A warmth spread through my chest, and I found myself asking more about her situation. Her family lived in a small town, and she used to be a boarding student. After dropping out, she could only afford to live in a tiny 100-square-foot rental room near the tutoring center. To support her younger brother, her parents made her work and send home $200 a month. Yet, even after dropping out of school, she seized every opportunity to study the piano she loved so dearly. Her story, so similar to my own childhood, sparked a bold idea in my mind. Perhaps I could help her. My voice was hoarse as I spoke. "Emily, if you had the chance, would you want to compete in the national piano competition in 4 months?" Winning a prize at the national piano competition not only comes with prize money, but also the chance to be recruited by major music academies. The gold medal winner even gets guaranteed admission to a top-tier arts institution. In my past life, I pushed my daughter to practice and compete, helping her win that gold medal. Emily had outranked my daughter in the placement test. If she could practice properly, winning the gold medal would be well within her reach. When I mentioned the piano competition, her eyes lit up for a moment, then quickly dimmed. I can't do it." I asked why not. With her head down, she explained her difficulties. She had wanted to participate before, but after looking into it, she found out that the entry fee alone was $200, and she would also need a performance dress for the day. Her monthly salary was $300. After sending $200 home and paying for food and rent, she could save a few dozen dollars at most. It would take her forever to save up $200. And if, by some misfortune, she didn't win a prize, all that money would be wasted. Life had forced her hand; she couldn't afford to take the risk. Hearing her explanation, I felt a sense of relief. If it was a problem that money could solve, it wasn't a problem at all. I patted her shoulder reassuringly. "Emily, don't worry. I'll help you take care of all of this. From now on, you can come live with me. I have a room for you. I'm divorced and my daughter lives with her father. I'm all alone in the house, so you can make yourself completely at home. I happen to have a new piano at home that my daughter barely used. You can use it to practice. You don't have to work anymore. Go back to school. I'll take care of the money." Emily shook her head and waved her hands frantically. "No, I can't, Mrs. Tan. We're not related. You don't have to help me like this." I took her hand. "You're right. Since we're not related, you can just pay me back when you're making your own money." Emily looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. You're my great benefactor. I will definitely save up and pay you back in the future." With my help, she was willing to give her dream one more all-out effort. She quit her job at the tutoring center and explained the situation to her teacher. The teacher said she could continue to sit in on classes for free, but I shook my head and paid for Emily's tuition for the next 4 months right then and there. On the way home, I sent a message to the owner of the music shop. "Sorry, please cancel my previous request. I've decided not to sell the piano." "Yes, that's right. My daughter is playing again. Thank you. She's working very hard. I'm sure she'll win the gold medal." Emily's old high school wasn't very good, so I had her transferred to the same prestigious high school my daughter attended, though they were in different classes. She attended regular classes during the day and practiced piano in the evenings and on weekends. She was incredibly bright. Even though she had been out of school for a few months, she caught up quickly. It wasn't just her studies, she was also extremely dedicated to the piano. One night, I got up and saw a light on in the piano room. When I went to check, I found her secretly practicing. She was afraid of disturbing me, so her fingers danced silently over the keys, not making a sound. This became an almost nightly ritual. Soon, her piano skills far surpassed the level my daughter had reached in her competition in my previous life. Her academic performance also soared. Within 2 months, she was in the top 10 of her grade. This way, even if she didn't win the competition and secure a spot at a top arts academy, she could still get into a great university. After the midterm exams, I was waiting for Emily at the school gate to take her out for barbecue as a reward. Unexpectedly, I didn't see Emily, but I did see my daughter. I hadn't seen her in months. She'd gained weight and let herself go. Her skin was oily and broken out. She was holding a bag of spicy chips, shoving them into her mouth. I used to make her healthy meals, but she always complained they were tasteless, preferring unhealthy junk food like fried chicken takeout. Now that I wasn't controlling her diet, this is what she had become. Oh well. Everyone has their own path. I let her be. I had no intention of greeting her, but to my surprise, she walked straight over to me when she saw me. She looked me over, a flash of surprise in her eyes at my changed appearance, but she still frowned and asked, "What are you doing here? Didn't you promise Dad you wouldn't come looking for me again? Did you forget? Regret abandoning me, do you? Let me tell you, I have nothing to do with you now. Don't even think about trying to control me." I replied flatly, "I'm not waiting for you." She scoffed. "Liar. Who else would you be waiting for? If you wanted to see me, why not just say so? If you were a little more honest about it and offered me, say $500 a month in allowance, I might consider coming back to you." From her words, I could tell that life with Liam wasn't going well. She couldn't bring herself to swallow her pride and beg me to take her back, so she resorted to sarcasm and reverse psychology. Too bad for her, I wasn't falling for it. I shook my head. "Too expensive. I can't afford you." She stuck her neck out, trying to bargain. $300 then. $300 is fine. The money you used to spend on my stupid lessons was more than $300 a month, wasn't it? Stupid lessons? The opportunity Emily dreamed of was just stupid to you. Before I could refuse, a man's voice came from behind me. "Hey bitch, who are you talking to?" A man roughly shoved me aside. He looked like he was about to hit someone, his face twisted in anger. He reeked of stale cigarette smoke. His hair was a messy, bleached blonde mop, full of dandruff and grease. It looked like it hadn't been washed in days. His clothes were tattered and had several holes burned by cigarette butts. Just looking at him, you could tell he was bad news. He grabbed my daughter's wrist and started to drag her away. "Didn't I tell you to come straight to the car after school? No messing around. Are you looking for a beating? You only behave when I hit you, don't you?" I glanced down and saw several bruises on my daughter's wrist, partially hidden by her uniform sleeve. As the man spoke, her body trembled uncontrollably. I recognized it. It was the reaction of someone living with an abuser. My daughter stumbled a few steps as he pulled her, then suddenly stopped and turned, yelling at me, "Mom, I want to come home with you." This man was the guy my daughter had met online. He was 10 years older than her and still unemployed. He spent his days hanging out at internet cafes, scamming young girls out of their money online. Hearing her cry out, the man turned back, shoved my daughter away, and swaggered over to me. "So you're her mom, huh? Not bad." He smirked, looking me up and down with a lecherous gaze that kept drifting to my chest. I felt so disgusted I almost threw up. "Mom, please. I don't want an allowance. I don't want anything. Just take me home." My daughter suddenly dropped to her knees, huge tears rolling down her face. "Dad changed after he married my stepmom. He's so impatient with me and won't give me a single penny. Grandma doesn't care about me either, she just makes me wait on them all day. My stepmom is mean to me too. She yells at me whenever she's in a bad mood. I ran away from home and moved in with my boyfriend, but he's not good to me either. The man kicked her hard on the spot, shouting, "You're my woman now, and you'll always be my woman. I'm already doing you a favor by letting you go to school. You think you can get away from me? Not a chance. If you try, I'll kill you." After saying that, he started kicking her again and again viciously. Other parents nearby looked over, but most of them seemed unfazed, as if this was a common sight. A few parents pulled out their phones, intending to call the police. Another parent dissuaded them. "Don't bother. It's useless. Someone called twice before." The police came and were about to take the guy away. But guess what? The girl begged the police to forgive him, saying the person who called was just jealous of her happiness. I can still remember the awkward look on the police officer's face. It's their family business. We shouldn't get involved. It's more trouble than it's worth. I felt a surge of second-hand embarrassment. That definitely sounded like something my daughter would do. When the man was done hitting her, he grabbed her by the hair and dragged her towards a motorcycle parked down the street. My gaze followed them, and I suddenly noticed Emily standing across the road, hiding behind a lamppost and watching us. I smiled wryly and beckoned for her to come over. "What are you doing over there? Why didn't you come over?" "I've been waiting for you for a while," I asked her. "I didn't know you were waiting for me. I thought you were waiting for Claire." "I didn't dare come over. I was afraid she'd get angry," Emily mumbled, her eyes darting towards my daughter and her boyfriend. I gently tapped her on the nose. "Don't worry about that. She and I have cut ties. You're the only daughter I have now. To celebrate your great grades, I'm taking you out for a big dinner tonight." I took Emily's hand, and we walked away together. "Thank you, Mom," she said suddenly. I stopped in my tracks. What did you say?" Emily's cheeks were bright red. She was extremely shy. You're 1,000 times better than my own mother. Can I call you Mom from now on?" I smiled. This was what I had been hoping for all along. "Of course you can." We held hands as we crossed the street. My daughter passed by on the back of her boyfriend's motorcycle. She stared at our tightly clasped hands, but the look in her eyes was no longer resentment. It was regret. It was only then that she finally believed I hadn't come for her today. And she finally understood. I really didn't want her anymore. The happy days flew by. In the blink of an eye, it was the eve of the national piano competition. As I was leaving the gym, I unexpectedly ran into Liam, who was just walking out of the building next door. I hadn't seen him in 6 months. He had put on a lot of weight. A beer belly was now prominent. Looking closer, I saw his face was pale, with faint dark circles under his eyes. It didn't look like he was sleep-deprived, it looked more like he had been overindulging. But his new wife was pregnant. I glanced up and saw the 3 large characters on top of the building. Foot massage parlor. Then I understood. He stared at me in astonishment. "Tanya? Is that you, Tanya?" I gave him a polite nod and started to walk away. He lunged forward to grab my arm, but I dodged him quickly, taking a few steps back to create some distance. "Is there something you need?" I asked. His eyes were filled with surprise and admiration. "Honey, how did you suddenly get so beautiful? I almost didn't recognize you." I corrected him. "I'm not your honey. Your wife is someone else. Please don't harass me, thank you." He forced a smile and started complaining to me as if we were old friends. "Don't even get me started. My current wife, she doesn't know how to do any housework. After Claire ran away, she started fighting with my mom every day, throwing bowls and plates, turning the house into a war zone. Whenever I had to go on a business trip, she'd throw a fit, so I had to switch to a less demanding job. And guess what? Last month, my position was eliminated in a round of layoffs. I was fired. I haven't dared to tell those 2 at home. I'm afraid they'll just start another fight. I only realize now how good you were. You went along with everything. I never had to worry about a thing, and you were so good at keeping the house in order. Honey, will you come back?" He looked at me with sincere hope in his eyes. I just felt a wave of nausea. I said coldly, "I'm beautiful now because I'm no longer worrying about you and your family of ungrateful parasites. You don't like your new wife anymore, because she's now part of the messy details of your life. Let me be blunt. A selfish, hypocritical, irresponsible man with zero empathy like you, Just looking at you makes me sick. By the way, I recorded everything you just said and sent it to your wife. You're welcome. Leaving him in a state of shock and disbelief, I turned and walked away with long strides. I had no interest in what happened next, because to me, those people were nothing more than insignificant dust in my life. The national piano competition took place as scheduled. I sat in the audience, watching Emily, dressed in a white ball gown, walk gracefully to the front of the stage and take her seat at the piano. A flawless melody poured from her fingertips. The white piano, the white dress. They were as pure and perfect as our dream. In a daze, I felt as if I were seeing a snow-white swan, struggling to break free from its cage. As the music soared, it spread its wings and flew high into the sky. It lost feathers and was stained with blood in its struggle, but from beginning to end, it remained a proud white swan. Tears streamed down my face before I even realized it. The results were announced quickly. Emily won the most well-deserved gold medal in the competition's history. She had completely outshone every other contestant. On the judges' panel, a world-renowned international pianist was deeply moved. He said her music seemed to have a soul, and that he wanted to make an exception and take her on as his student. In addition to top universities, many international academies also extended offers to her. From that day on, her path was clear, her future was radiant. She could leave whenever she wanted, forever bidding farewell to her blood-sucking family. The host invited her to give her acceptance speech. She summed up her own efforts in a single sentence, dedicating the rest of her speech to thanking the mother she loved for all her support. The host then invited me on stage to speak. I sincerely expressed my feelings at that moment. Perhaps everyone experiences a dark period in their life, but as long as you can get through it, the road ahead is bright and clear. It's never too late to pursue your dreams and embrace happiness. End of main story. Epilogue. Claire's story. My mom was famous. The old television flickered, broadcasting news about my mom. The 2 sentences she spoke at the National Piano Competition Awards ceremony had gone viral online, inspiring countless high school seniors cramming for their final exams. Even my classmates called me excitedly, telling me how envious they were that I had such a wonderful mother. They said she was beautiful and profound, that her words held so much power. I replied, I think my mom is wonderful too. But my mom didn't want me anymore. By now, the SATs had been over for 3 days, but I felt no sense of relief, because I didn't even take them. I touched my belly, which was now noticeably pregnant, and sighed silently. In just a few short months, I felt like I had aged decades. The sky was completely dark. My boyfriend was still out drinking. I had no idea when he would be back. And even when he did come back, all he knew how to do was get drunk and violent, hitting and kicking me. He had almost caused me to miscarry several times. Sometimes I thought it would be better if he just killed me. Then I wouldn't be in so much pain. I looked down at the pill bottle on the floor. It was empty. I had just taken a whole bottle of sleeping pills. My eyelids were already getting heavy. I forced myself to stay awake, picking up my shattered phone that could barely function, and replayed the videos of Emily's competition and award ceremony over and over. I had a strange feeling. I kept thinking, all of this, it was supposed to be mine. I was the one who was supposed to win the gold medal. I was the one who was supposed to get the guaranteed admission. I was the one who was supposed to be my mother's daughter. It was all supposed to be me. So why wasn't it? When did things start to change? Maybe it was when I started to despise the sight of her always dirty apron. Maybe it was when I got annoyed with her constant nagging to study hard and practice diligently. Maybe it was when I gradually grew tired of how ordinary she was. My mind grew more and more numb and chaotic, until I could barely think at all. I was finally going to be free. I managed a faint smile and slowly closed my eyes. It was all too late. My life was a complete wreck. There was no going back. I only hope that if I see my mother in the next life, she can forgive me, and then say to me, Claire, dinner's ready, and